Hello, and welcome to Dude, Where Are My Used Cars? This is an automotive news power training webinar, and it's being brought to you by vAuto Stockwave. We're so glad that you've been able to join us today. My name is Dave Versicle. I am the Chief of Editorial Operations here at the Automotive News Group. And before we get to our speaker, let me share a few tips to help you navigate this webinar. First, we welcome your questions. You can ask them at any time. Simply type them into the Q&A box. You're going to find that box on the left side of your webinar window. Hit submit, and our speaker will reply at a later date via email. Also, to enlarge the slides, just grab the frame with your mouse and pull it larger. And to download the slides, click on the folder icon, which you can see there at the bottom of your console. Our speaker today is Patrick Janes. Patrick brings 27 years of automotive industry knowledge to vAuto. Right now, he's the Business Development Director of Stockwave, which is vAuto's wholesale sourcing solution. Welcome, Patrick.
Thanks, Dave. Let me start by saying that when I first put together this webinar, things were very different. So I want to put into perspective some of my thoughts in developing this, and then you're going to hear how I have taken some of this information and pivoted a bit to where we are with the current situation. So before COVID-19, our Cox Automotive economists forecasted about a 300,000 unit increase in retail used vehicle sales. Now, that's 300,000 more used vehicles that were going to be sold through dealerships. All right, so don't confuse that with the big number you hear all the time in used cars is about 39 million and some change that are sold. That is total used car industry, including private sellers. But the number that goes through dealerships is a little closer to 20 million. But the great news was, prior to this crisis, was that we were forecasted to have another year-over-year increase, which has been going on for about 2 or 3 years now, of growing this business through retail dealerships, franchise and independent. Now, on the other side of the coin was the new vehicle retail sales. Now, we're going to exclude fleet here. And that was projected to be down about 300,000 units. We've had some stellar years over the past few years, and expectations were that that was going to go through a little bit of our cycle and be down again. So prior to the situation we're in now, and I'll get to that, if you combine this with the activity by what we're seeing in the marketplace by some of those disruptors out there that are doing retailing maybe a little different than the traditional dealer, I felt going into this year that used vehicle supply may be the only thing stopping a dealer from capitalizing on a robust used car market. I know what you're thinking. That was then, this is now. But I think we can all agree that our economy was in nice shape, much unlike the crash of 2008, which I lived through just 3 years into my retail career as a general manager of a couple of stores. But let's agree to be optimists for the next 30 minutes or so. And I think that's a fair ask, since I have met with very few successful people in the car business that weren't optimists. Today, I want you to imagine you found some unexpected time, and for many of you probably have. So we're going to say we're going to Netflix and chill, if you will. Or in our industry, we're going to call it car biz and chill. And I want to spend some time in this webinar on the one area of the business you could study that would give you the greatest payoff when, not if, but when this recovery begins. We're going to talk about acquisition. First, I'm going to cover the best practice that I have seen to track, manage expectations, and create accountability and leverage the increase in digital retailing that we are seeing and expect to see more of in the months ahead as it relates to your most profitable used vehicle source, and that's trade-ins. And we're going to dig deep there. I'm going to spend some significant time on that. Then we're going to come back and we're going to look at number 2, which is to determine a stocking strategy based on market opportunity. NADA reports that 65% of the average franchise dealers' used car inventory comes from trade-ins. That means that there's some other inventory that we need to go find. And I'm going to encourage you to better understand your market, not just what you sell, but what the market is selling, to build a stocking strategy to find the right cars to supplement your used vehicle inventory. And I think we can all agree when we get into this recovery, the market may be very different in terms of where consumers are going to migrate to with the types of vehicles they may want, used vehicles they may want to purchase. And then lastly, yes, my day job is leading technology that helps dealers more efficiently find the right inventory across the entire wholesale availability at physical auctions and digital marketplaces. I emphasize digital marketplaces because, as you know, there are no physical auctions operating right now, and we may see that trend continue. So we have to learn to acquire our inventory online, and it may be a very different way of life for vehicle acquisition. But I am going to shamelessly show you how there's some technology out there that can really help you on this online buying. So I watched Rhett Reichert, the current NADA chair, in an interview earlier this week, and he said in a recent dealer survey just conducted since the crisis hit, internet sales activity was up significantly for 5% of the dealers they surveyed. It was up a little for 12.5%. 20% had no change. This is internet sales activity. And 37.5% of them said down slightly. So I was a little bit shocked by that, and even Mr. Reichert expressed that 75% of those surveyed really had, considering what we're going through, a relatively positive response, given the activity that's going on the internet and the opportunity for sales, which gives us great signs of what could happen once we're on the backside of this issue. But of all things good and bad, we can learn from what is called those disruptors. And I think this slide here gets my attention the most. Going into this crisis, this year, I looked at the annual report from Carvana, and it was amazing to me to see the success that they are having with their new strategy to go out and buy customers' cars right off the street. You can see the numbers here, 104,000 customer vehicle acquisitions last year, up 231% from the year before. So again, I believe that even in this post-crisis market, we have to start thinking about how we acquire inventory, and we've got an opportunity now to kind of reset and see what how our strategy should work. So many are learning and applying the same digital approach. Check out this internet website here from AutoNation. Looks remarkably similar to the Carvana page that I just showed you, right? So we need to see how we can engage with our customers to deliver transparency and confidence with the tools we have right now. Let's learn from some of these successes. Let's put them into our own dealership operations, and let's take advantage of the other side of this crisis and get our unfair share of the business that's going to return. So let's dig into your trade appraisal process. So we got to have some measurable objectives. First of all, in a good trade appraisal project, the trade appraisal process, our first goal should be we want to win the trade. We want to make the car deal, right? That should always be what we want to do first. Then we want to acquire retail at an acceptable cost to market metric. I mean, I can increase your trade capture rate significantly if you put me on your desk and I start paying way too much for trade-ins. So we want to own these vehicles right. Typically, they are your best margin opportunities, and we want to keep it that way. So we need to measure that closely. We want to collect adequate vehicle and customer data to be able to have an effective save-a-deal activity. All right, we continue to see even new car franchises where we have certain objectives we need to achieve with new vehicle sales, and there's times at the end of the month when we would like to take another look at a few of those trades. If we document ourselves well enough, we have the ability to have those types of meetings. But lastly, and what I'm going to consider most importantly, we have to collect adequate appraisal history information all the way down to the salesperson level so that we can measure our folks and really inspect what we expect out of our trade appraisal process. I'm going to show you how to do that. First, let's talk about how we're going to engage that consumer. So this is an appraisal talk track that I think is a great opener. It doesn't matter whether I'm working an internet lead or whether this customer is face-to-face with me. It's a transparent interaction and really says this is the objective of what I want to do with you, with the customer during the trade-in process. We're committed to providing market-based appraisals, and we use current market data to arrive at our valuations. We use several sources, and a key question here at this point, right out of the gate. Have you had the opportunity to review values at one or more of the online sources? Why do I want to know that? Because I need to understand where the customer's frame of reference is. I can use those tools then when I'm trying to create transparency and let them understand how we arrive at the value of their vehicle and make sure they have confidence in it. Now, I'm going to give you a few tips and tools in here that I've seen dealers use that work the best. This is one of my favorites. I mean, this is right off the Kelley Blue Book website on how a questionnaire, if you will, and you can take this and have this internally for use on how we understand the condition of that vehicle. Because let's face it, we're doing a lot of sight unseen appraisals. We got to probe and get to the answer of the condition of the vehicle in order to give a fair evaluation. So how do we, uncover that information? I think this one does it best. And to the consumer, it's from the trusted source, right? From their perception to help us evaluate that condition of the vehicle. You can see the questions on there. They're not hugely confrontational. They are just, has an insurance claim ever been filed on your vehicle? Are there complete service records available? Would you be willing to share those service records with me if we were able to acquire your vehicle so that I could share them with the customer who's going to buy the vehicle? These are all value added. Are there 2 sets of keys? I think we all know how much a second set of keys are for some of these luxury vehicles today, or even the compact cars that are out there. They're not cheap, right? And they have a lot of expense. So these are all things that we can plant seeds in the customer's mind. If they have those things, the value is substantiated. If they don't, there may be some deduction for those items. This one gets into if they start talking about a little damage, or maybe they say, oh, no insurance claim. Oh, yeah, I pulled my own Carfax. Car's great. Everything's fine. Let's talk about cosmetics, right? Bumpers, is there, chips on the bumper? Well, yeah, there is. I've had the car for X amount of miles. Are there any road rash, if you will, on the wheels? Again, trying to get that information identified so that we can properly assess the reconditioning, even though, of course, we still want to physically see the vehicle before we actually take the vehicle in and trade. We can get closer to a value if the customer works with us. I believe in these third-party resources. Sorry, I'm going to get ahead of you there. I believe in these third-party resources to build value in the appraisals. Kelley Blue Book, I've already showed you that, and I'm going to dive deep into one that I think works incredibly well in terms of determining the value. We have other guidebooks, and as dealers, we can't help ourselves, right? We got to use Black Book and MMR because those give us that wholesale value. Well, to the customer, wholesale values don't mean a whole lot to them unless they are, in fact, trading a unit that's on its last leg and you're going to wholesale it. You might be able to use some auction values to give them some guidance on why you put that number on their vehicle. But occasionally, someone will go on and they'll use the NADA consumer book. You need to know that. That's why we ask that question, because then we want to use that tool to be able to walk them through this process, something that they're familiar with. The last two, I'm going to just show you some cool little tricks within vAuto. If you're a vAuto customer, if not, there may be similar applications in the tool that you're using to pull out some transparent examples for the customer to look at under certain objections. All right, if you take away one thing from today, take a real hard look at this. If you're already doing this, then you're going to go, wow, I'm brilliant. and I'm going to tell you you're brilliant, because I've had more and more dealers that I've showed this to that have told me that this has really improved their process with the consumer with regard to transparency. So this is a screenshot within vAuto, but really all it is the KBB values of the trade-in for this 2017 Toyota Camry. So if you notice here, down at the bottom, the trade-in value says good is $12,969. Now, I don't know how many dealers I talk to and say, yep, that's what I do. I go out to the customer and say, hey, you have a good condition vehicle, and this is what Kelley Blue Book says, and we take a look at that. So let me ask you a question. The last baby that was born in your extended family, relatives, friends, or whatever, when you congratulated the parents, did you say like, oh, he or she is nice, so nice? All right, if you did that, I'm going to recommend you try something like, oh, he or she is adorable or beautiful next time. That's probably what you said, right? So when this customer is on the KBB site, we know that they check the highest value, right? They want to know what's the most I can get for my money, which happens to be excellent condition. So this approach says, rather than telling them that their baby is ugly, let's meet them where they are. Note the difference on the screen here in the orange box that shows between good and excellent on this 2017 Camry. It's less than $800. I guarantee you the consumer perception, they feel there's thousands of dollars between good and excellent. That's that expectation that we're going to try to manage through this process. So to do that, in my vAuto appraisal, next one. In my vAuto appraisal, I have this little printout that I can do, and I can provide a report that's going to detail that KBB trade-in. Now, if you don't have this tool, obviously you can be online, pulling the KBB trade-in straight from their website. Takes a little extra effort, a lot more clicks, but you can get there. What I like about this report is the way it's formatted and all the data is on one page. So by clicking that little printer icon at the top and checking these boxes, and by the way, at the end of this presentation, you're going to have my contact information, so you can reach out to me and I can provide you with any of these screenshots that you may need to be able to share with management to say, hey, are you using these buttons? And so when I print this particular sheet out, this is what I want to use with the customer. Now, the great thing is this is pulled as a PDF, right? So I don't have to have the customer in front of me. That might not be the case in the coming days, right? So I can be interacting with that customer by sending them a PDF and then having a conversation over the phone as I'm working this lead. But you'll see, my favorite thing about this is I'm going to list out what KBB excellent trade-in is for the vehicle. But what's cool about this printout is at the bottom. There is the disclaimer, not the dealership's disclaimer, KBB's disclaimer of what an excellent vehicle is. And you'll see it's the top 3% of all cars meet this criteria in the nation. We want to read through that with the customer. Let them understand expectations, right? The car looks new, is in excellent mechanical condition, has never had paint or body work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They start to understand that this thing is the cream of the crop, right? Now, my position to the customer is, in order for me to get your vehicle to excellent condition, because that's what we want to put on our lot in order to sell it, I have to do some work to your car. So we're going to start at Kelley Blue Book, excellent trade-in, and then we're going to identify those reconditioning items, as I have on this sheet here, that we're going to have to do to your vehicle to get it to excellent. I'm going to have to put brand new tires on it because an excellent condition car would not have the tread half worn or maybe even a quarter worn for that matter. You talked about the chips on the bumper. I'm going to have to paint that front bumper. Sounds like you haven't had a brake job in X amount of miles. You've got dent removal that needs to be done. et cetera, et cetera. I can detail them on this sheet. And what the interesting thing is here is that this vehicle at $13,757, if I were to add up my reconditioning items, that's $1,420 worth of items. My trade-in value for this vehicle is going to be $12,337. Now, in case you weren't paying attention on that last slide, the good condition for that vehicle is $12,969. I think you're going to be happy with where you end up. Now, you say, well, that's great, but I got customers that are going to debate and argue about these reconditioning items. First of all, if you've identified these through your survey, they can't probably debate whether it needs to be done. They may debate how much you need to spend to get it done. Yeah, they may say, hey, I could put tires on that car for $550. I had them priced at one time. Okay, let's take that down to $550. You've got room here, right? Remember, good condition was $12,969. This is coming out to $12,337. I've got hundreds of dollars of room, and I would still be back at Kelley Blue Book good. I don't know how many times I've done analysis on dealers' inventory where I compared every vehicle in inventory versus Kelley Blue Book Excellent. Looked at their cost and looked at Kelley Blue Book Excellent, and they own those cars for hundreds, even thousands of dollars more than Excellent. So when I work this the other way and say start at Excellent and back off the reconditioning items, I think you'll be happy with where you end up in the vehicles, and it's a more transparent process for your consumers. A little trick we have in vAuto, which I think kind of formalizes this, we have what we call the customer voucher. It's inside of vAuto. With just a few clicks, you can print an appraisal customer voucher or check, if you will, personalized to them, and you can actually even put the KBB value in the memo line down there. You'll see in that check in the upper left-hand corner. And I think that could be very useful as you're sending that out. It looks like real money. It's cash money. It's made out to them, if you will. And this can be a nice angle to use. This could be a nice approach if you're appraising vehicles that are in your service drive and you want to leave that check with them on their service bill saying, hey, we'd like to buy your car back today. You know, that's what the disruptors are doing, right? They're not asking to sell them another vehicle. They're saying, we'll just buy your car. So that promotes some interesting thinking on the consumer's part. The vAuto market report. So obviously, you know, you have a pricing tool, if it's vAuto or even if it's another pricing tool. We can put in the appraisal screen, if you look at that circled area there, you can put in what the proposed asking price was for that vehicle. Now, why would I do this? So if I have that customer who says, wait a minute, I see what you're offering me for my trade, but I was online doing some shopping, and I'm seeing cars like mine that are going for crazy money, all right? Well, what's crazy? Well, here's an example, a scenario here. I saw a car just like mine that they were asking $26,000 for. So let me run a scenario. I put the $26,000 into the asking price, into my tool. I print out this PDF. I pull the competitive set, and I can go back to the customer and say, Mr. Jones, I looked at your $26,000 retail position. We have some pricing software that looks at the entire market and pulls all the listings, and this printout is a representation of that. And if I priced your car at $26,000, you can see I would not be very competitive in the marketplace. So this is another validation to be able to show them in the market what it looks like rather than just saying, hey, Mr. Jones, you're crazy. This is why you're crazy, Mr. Jones, in a very nice, non-confrontational way. Another nice tool that you can provide in a PDF format as well. All right, so let's dig into how we're going to track and really inspect what we expect. So a dealer's look-to-book, trade capture rate, if you will, should be, and we've been doing this for years, obviously, at vAuto, and we do a lot of consulting on this particular metric because we think it's key to being able to get as much inventory through your trade appraisal process as you can. It should be between 50 and 60%. Now, I'm not going to get into that number, and you can have someone analyze your business and help you with where you're at, and you can do that through this appraisal summary screen in vAuto. But most importantly, what I want to talk about is how do I make sure that I'm tracking this correctly and that I can have the ability to track this metric all the way down to my salespeople. So take a look at the first thing that needs to happen. One, if you are doing appraisals in your system, regardless of the system you're in, you want to make sure that you are differentiating auction appraisals and trade-in appraisals. Trade-in appraisals should be cars at the curb. They have a customer associated with it, okay? Albeit they may be sight unseen, but there's still a customer connected with that vehicle. If you're looking at cars on the wholesale market, then those appraisals need to be marked correctly, because you'll see on this screen here, we have an appraisal side and a non-trade side. I don't want to tell you that you're doing a really bad job with your look-to-book and come to find out you've got a bunch of auction appraisals in there dragging your number down because you're just looking at cars at auction and only buying 1 out of 50. So that's a key little housekeeping item here. Secondly, what you want to do is document your appraisal correctly in order to get it down to the salesperson level. Make sure you identify your salesperson on the appraisal. There's that purchase button. If you're in the appraisal and it is an auction car, you can check that box, at least in vAuto, and it will filter that vehicle out of your look-to-book. So that's important. And then if it's a wholesale vehicle, I mean, junk is junk, right? If you know the vehicle is a $500 piece, let's mark it as a wholesale appraisal so that we don't hold our salespeople accountable. It's nothing worse than an employee coming to you and saying, wow, you're telling me I don't get very good trade capture rate, but that's because I get a lot of junk. So let's differentiate those, and then we can do that in our reporting. This is what we're going for. The end result, a look-to-book percentage by appraiser down to salesperson for coaching and training. Most dealers manage sales closing rate percentages, like how many ups, how many demos, how many you sold. Really good at closing that. Got them all over the conference room wall. Very rarely do I walk into a dealership and do they have the trade capture rate, the look-to-book for each of their salespeople. And I would argue that being able to sell numbers on a trade and win a trade is worth 2 car deals, not 1. I get the car that I'm trading the vehicle in on, I sell that car because I was able to acquire the trade, and then I get a nice piece of merchandise that I can turn around and retail, which is typically my most profitable used vehicle source. All right, be careful with this report. One of my favorite reports in vAuto, but some dealers, they spend hours on this because we're all competitive in nature. This is the lost appraisal report. Because we see every VIN coming into the market and off the market, when you get a trade-in that you appraised at your dealership, we can tell you where that vehicle ended up on what dealer's website. So we know exactly who got that trade-in. Now, there's a lot of reasons that happens, because remember, if you're the best dealer and you're at 60% look-to-book, that means 40% of the trades you looked at are getting out. That's some of the best dealers in the country. So 40%, you're always going to have information, or you're always going to have cars on this report. What's most important here is to go down to the bottom and look at who is the appraiser, who is the salesperson, and use it for coaching. And look at the appraisal value, because that all information is all documented here. And see, did we hit the car too low? All right? Maybe that other dealer that got the car is just crazy. All right? That happens. But we want to go in and look at this, and what we want to do is coach our salespeople. When they say, oh, no, that's Mr. Jones's car, he's still out there shopping, and you can click right there where that red arrow is, and you can view the listing and say, you mean this one right here, that 2016 Toyota Tundra? Yeah, it's online at this dealership right now. All right, let's go to the last 2 points, and I will let you go. So the second area is determine a stocking strategy based on market opportunity. This is hard for dealers to get their heads around because we need to start thinking about the market in totality, and you probably need some help doing this. You certainly need some market data. And what we want you to do is identify the right segments for your business model. There are some segments you just may not play in. You may not be playing in the luxury car or luxury SUV business because of the business model you have. You may not be in commercial vehicles, etc. But based on your business model, where is the opportunity for you to grow your business? Because everybody wants to grow, right? And I've got to get supplemental inventory. Again, I'm only trading 65% of my cars are coming from my trade-ins in a typical dealer. What is it that I supplement my inventory for? And I need to think about that. Identify the segments where your inventory is under or overstocked. All right, we're going to compare that to the market. Identify price bands where the market is outperforming your current inventory levels or your sales history. So you could be crushing it, all right, in the $15,000 to $20,000 compact SUV segment, but from $25,000 to $30,000 in an intermediate SUV segment, you've never traded one, you've never bought one, and you've never sold one. And that could completely be dark to you. So it's important to look at those pockets of opportunity. And also we want you to compare what your target day supply is, what you want to hold in inventory, and compare that to the market day supply to see if we're in line. To do that, we're going to use lots of tools. The first one in vAuto is called the provisioning strategy page. A lot of dealers I talk to say, I get in here every once in a while. This is a place that you want to live in when you're coming up with that stocking strategy, because it's going to tell you what you have in inventory by segment, by price point, and it's going to tell you how many you've sold. Now, that's great because that's going to give you your sales history and where you may need inventory. You can see the pluses and minuses, buying actions in here. So that would be helpful to know, but underneath the little squiggly graphs on the screen is what the market is doing. So what we like to do, and this is where performance consultation comes, and this comes with the technology that I'm about to show you next, is we like to take a deeper dive. Now, you're looking at the spreadsheet and going, whoa, what am I going to do with this? I'm not an Excel guru. All right, we do this for you. But I do think you have to have some form of this. And this is where you can start by saying, how many cars do I want to sell? How many vehicles do I know I'm going to trade? Because I've got a look-to-book percentage in my system. And I can tell you, last month I traded 42 cars. All right, what's it look like for this month based on my sales plan? I should trade another 42. I pop that in there, and then it's going to spit out, you need to buy X amount of cars this month in order to hit your sales plan. What we do in the bottom there is we show you what your sales history is, but we also show you what the market's doing. So you can start to identify those segments and price bands where you might want to go into the auction space or onto a digital marketplace and be able to purchase some units and fill those gaps where you can grow your business. Okay, here's my shameless plug, but I would not be doing you a service if I didn't give you a little bit of insight on what kind of technology is out there right now to find these cars, okay? So we've identified a stocking strategy. We know what we need to do to fill those gaps. Now we need to go out and find cars, and what we want to do is find cars that we can buy right and we can make money on based on your local market data. And that's what we want to be able to provide. And I think we're about to enter a very new market. Obviously, with the pause that we're in right now, we're going to see auction values start to adjust. And I truly believe there are going to be some buys out there in the auction and these digital marketplaces. And if you know how to use the technology and apply the metrics, I think you're going to find yourself in a very good position to capitalize on the recovery. Inside of a product called StockWave, we have this cross-auction search. It's a little different than going to Manheim.com or ADESA.com. And by the way, StockWave is, we consider ourselves agnostic, or we're Switzerland, we say, right? We have all the auction inventory that's in the marketplace inside of the tool. We're helping you go find the cars that you need, regardless of where they live. You can see all these different types of filters that are in here. based on market day supply, based on your strategy action from your strategy page, right, where you need to fill those holes. We're going to allow you to refine the number of vehicles that are at auction. You could put a maximum distance in here that you're willing to go to get buy vehicles online. All of that information is here, refining my Carfax accident reports, and being able to whittle down several 100,000 vehicles or cars on the auction wholesale space at any given time down to a manageable number that you can go through and find the ones that you need and the ones you can be profitable with. A lot of our dealers use the saved searches to accomplish this. So if in my strategy, I've laid out that I need to buy Highlanders or base Priuses on a regular basis, I can create a saved search inside of StockWave, and then it will alert me in this little blue bar there of the new vehicles that have just hit auction, whether it's OBE, whether it's dealer block, it could be online, it could be buy it now cars. It will alert me when those vehicles like that come on to the space, and I've already got all my filters in there of what's important to me, and I can go in and check these on a regular basis and pick up those key cars that my stocking strategy says I need to find all day, every day. This is the glance. So essentially with just the click of that light bulb highlighted by the yellow arrow on the upper left, I can pull all the data I need on that particular vehicle. This is all customizable. All the information to the right is all customizable. What book values are important to you, what data is important to you. There's a notepad to say how much you think the vehicle's worth, which will follow that car until the time in which you decide to buy it. It'll also do an instant appraisal on the vehicle. With one click, I can get a quick appraisal that says this might be some bid guidance to consider. I can adjust that appraisal if I look at the condition report, which is right there, and say, oh, no, I think I need to put a few more dollars than what came out of my default. I can make all those adjustments on the fly and be able to identify the vehicles that are the most profitable for my market, because this is providing local market data. All of your live market view data that's in your vAuto provision, it tells you what the average price of the vehicle is online, all based on your market, is all there to be able to compare. Because we always say, never buy a vehicle until you know what you're going to sell it for, right? You pick that retail price, so what you think you can sell it for, and then you back in to what you ought to pay for it. You can use that buy it now feature that I mentioned. That's one of the filters. You could go in, if you're a subprime dealer, you get a little subprime business once in a while, right? An NADA clean trade-in is important to you because that's what your lenders advance on. I could go through and book out all the cars in the universe against what they could buy it now for versus what it books out on NADA clean trade-in. Wouldn't that be a time saver and find some of those opportunities of those vehicles that could be real, truly nice profit vehicles? This is our simulcast feature, and there's a little video that goes behind this. It's really cool if you get a demo from us that really highlights how this works. But to the left is actual live auction that's happening right now. As those vehicles are running through the lane, if I star that vehicle back during my research, and remember I put my notes in of what I think I ought to pay for it, that vehicle will be alerted to me on my computer. Let's say I've got some things to do. I'm merchandising cars. I'm working a deal. All of a sudden, I get an alert on my desktop that says the vehicle that I did my pre-research on is now about to run. It actually, there's an engine revving noise, and it yells out the lane that it's in. You'll see across the top, this dealer has, 6 lanes open. So they have vehicles in different auctions in different places across the country, and they're able, because they started them on the list, for it to identify when those cars are going to run, and all that data from that glance is going to populate again, as well as the notes of what I thought I ought to pay for that. Allows me to go in and buy these cars. Really saves you a lot of time when you're trying to work through simulcast, which is going to be a lot of simulcast business going on in the future, as we all know. Whoops. sorry. So thank you for your time. Obviously, I appreciate your attention. I hope this is helpful. I hope you're able to take advantage of this downtime to reassess your strategies, to be able to look at things that you're doing in your dealership and some of these best practices. And when we come out on the other end of this crisis and the market comes roaring back, which I think we all have the faith in because it was doing so well before we went into it, that some of these things will make you a lot of money and finish out a great year for you all. Pardon the pirate outfit, but, my MO is I've worked with a lot of dealers over the years, and I don't have a whole lot of original ideas, but, boy, I've pirated some really great ideas from a lot of really smart dealers, and that's what I try to share with folks in this current role. And there's my contact information as well. Thank you.
Okay, Patrick, and thank you. Love the when, not if attitude that you carried on throughout, and that is going to bring us to the end of this session. If you learned something from it, please tell your peers about it. You're going to be able to find a replay at automotivenews.com/powertraining. As we draw to a close, a survey is going to open up on your screen. Feedback helps us get better, so please take a few moments to fill it out. Thanks again to Patrick and to vAuto Conquest for bringing us this presentation. Thanks to all of you for joining us. On behalf of everyone at Automotive News, have a great rest of your day. So long.